Welcome back to Wilmington Trust Capital Consideration. I'm your host, Tony Roth. I'm honored to be joined today by Eric O'Neill, a former FBI counterintelligence operative who played a pivotal role in capturing one of America's most notorious spies, Robert Hanssen. Thanks for joining. I want to remind everyone that any reference to specific securities or company names are merely for explaining the market view and should not be construed as investment advice or investment recommendations.
It's great to be here and talk about spies, lies, and cybercrime and all those things that we need to protect ourselves about.
That's right. So let me give you a proper introduction. Eric, you're a leading cybersecurity expert, attorney, and founder of the Georgetown Group, which is a firm dedicated to protecting clients from cyber threats. And beyond your operational expertise, you're also a seasoned media commentator. I know you're going to be on CNN in a few minutes after we have our conversation today. Your expertise, Eric, is so important, and it's especially relevant because we're in a rapidly evolving technology landscape. We have not only AI, which for some of us is new, for others it's been around for a while, but we also have other types of technology that are adjacent, like quantum computing, all kinds of deep fake tools, and these things are advancing rapidly and transforming the landscape that we contend with every day to protect ourselves and protect our privacy, protect our information, protect our assets, financial assets. So digital security is just vital. And you have a unique perspective that I think is formed by a number of things that come together, not just your experience in cybersecurity, but also that counterintelligence background I think is fascinating. We're really excited to have you here today to offer a lot of valuable insights. And ultimately, we can then take those insights and figure out whether we're managing portfolios in a way that's sensitive to these kinds of issues, whatever that may mean. And we'll talk a bit about that as well.
Definitely. It's good to hear. And you hit the nail on the head. I always say that what I bring to cybersecurity is counterintelligence, and that cybersecurity really is counterintelligence against cybercrime and spies.
Well, it's funny. I was driving out of my driveway this morning and I looked up and I saw these big, huge trees, and it made me think of the similarity. And there's one important dissimilarity, but the similarity between being a homeowner and having tree work done and cybersecurity. And the similarity is that you can spend thousands of dollars taking down a single tree. And if you have a lot of trees around your house, there could be a lot of trees that need to come down, and it costs a lot of money. And what does it do for the value of your home? There's absolutely zero, right? There's nobody that ever increased the value of their home by taking down a bunch of trees. It's just something out there that you don't think about too much, and you just have to invest in order to protect yourself so the tree doesn't fall down and hit the house. And cybersecurity is the same way. You have to invest in it. It costs money. It doesn't really get you anything, but it prevents bad things from happening, like the tree falling on your house. The dissimilarity, though, is that whereas you can see the trees, they're pretty obvious that they need to come down at some point. You can't see those cyber threats. So I don't know if that resonates, that metaphor, but I thought about it this morning.
It does. It is. And I start the book with a story about being a freshman in high school, right? Maybe 15 years old, and my house burning down. I get pulled out of school. I get driven home by a parent of my best friend, and my house is a smoking wreck. Well, it's an old Victorian home, and once upon a time, they used to build one big fire in the basement, and then it would go up these ducts into each of the bedrooms and just heat this iron plate in the back of the fireplace. That's how you heated the house. And then as technology advanced, they put radiators in. Didn't need those. So they got rid of all the fireplaces in the rooms and the thing in the basement, put in closets, because you have to have a closet in every room to sell a house today, and forgot to remove that one duct that just went from the basement to my room. That the fire started in the basement, and according to the fireman, the fireball shot up so fast and in moments incinerated everything I owned. So I don't own anything since before I was 15 years old in this fire. That's what it feels like to be in the center of a cyber attack. And you do all the things, the same thing, like you don't see the fire coming. You don't see the value from taking down the trees, but you don't see the fire coming, but you still have to put the smoke detectors up, and you still have to have, early alert, and you have to have the fire insurance, and all those things.
Let's talk about, we've got privacy, we've got confidential information, we've got ownership of assets, like assets, which are basically all digitized today, are stocks and bonds and accounts, et cetera.
Right.
Where do you see the biggest risks today? Give us the state of play, if you will, the baseline of the landscape, and then we'll go from there.
Certainly, if you're a financial institution, one of your biggest risks is a ransomware attack. Financial institutions are at the top tier for cyber criminals who are trying to lock them with ransomware. And for anyone who's heard of ransomware but doesn't know exactly what it is, that means that they get into your computer environment, into your network, and they're able to use malicious code, otherwise known as malware, to encrypt all of your data, or as much of it as they possibly can. They'll even try to get your backups, encrypt that, so that without the key to that encryption, you can't see your data. They will also steal your data. So they will take customer information, client information, your information, whatever they can find, the email box for the CEO, and will ransom that back to you. So if you say, "Now we've got a great backup. We don't care that you locked us with ransomware. We're going to go through the pain to restore from backup," which you have to do anyway. They will say, "That's fine. This is called a double extortion attack. But we've also stolen all your data. And if you don't pay us, we're going to publish it all over for the world to see. All of your customer data is going to be out there. We're going to use it against you. We're going to start launching identity fraud attacks against the people that trusted you with their information." So that's a critical problem that every financial institution is looking to solve right now.
We say they're looking to solve it. Are they looking to solve it, or are they looking to stay ahead of it or contain it? Because I don't sense that there's a possibility at all that we'll ever wake up and say, well, we've solved the cybersecurity problem. It seems to me that it's a constant burn. It's a constant battle. You can only be ahead of it for a period of time. Hopefully it's a long period of time, but you can't actually solve it because the threats are always evolving and changing and getting more sophisticated, and you just have to keep up with it.
It's a good nuance. What you're trying to do is put yourself in the best situation to succeed if you are attacked. That's really what you can do. The fact of the matter is that at some point, every organization will be attacked. There are $14 trillion worth of cybercrime flowing through the dark web right now. That is a lot of people out there that are launching attacks, and they don't really care who you are or what you do, only if you're vulnerable. If they see you're vulnerable, they will launch the attack. So what you can do is plan ahead of the attack so that you're resilient. When the attack lands, you're resilient. You have the technology to see the attacker fast enough to limit the damage, kick the attacker out, know exactly when they got in. So you have that point to restore from and come out without the entire house burning down around you.
When I listen to the news every day, there were times in the last X number of years where I recall in the news cycle a repetition of different cyber attacks that might have occurred. Whether I remember Microsoft was a big victim at one point. I remember the government. I remember some other institutions. When I think about the news cycle this year, have I just been jaded, or are these attacks less successful in this country, or are companies publicizing them less, or am I obtuse to it again? Why am I not sensing quite as many big stories around this in the last 3 to 6 months?
The news cycle tends to hijack the very important cybersecurity attack. So when an airline goes down, when, for example, people might have missed that Jaguar Land Rover was down for weeks to the tunes of millions and millions of dollars, where they couldn't use any of their assembly lines. They build what, like 1,000 cars a day, and they were building zero for somewhere around 3 weeks before they were able to restart manufacturing. And that was because of a cybercrime group who launched a ransomware attack against them.
And did they pay the ransomware, or did they figure out?
At the end, they didn't pay the ransom, and information is coming out is very sketchy. They haven't put out a full exactly what happened and why, but it looks like a cybercrime attack, a ransomware attack. It looks like they didn't pay the ransom and they did the work to restore themselves. Because if you pay a ransom, you might get your data back quickly. You might get to restart quickly, but you still have to put in all the work and pain to ensure that the attacker isn't still in your computer systems, in your environment, because you'll just be a repeat customer until you not only kick them out, but build the cybersecurity that prevents them from launching that scale of an attack in the future.
Is the goal to minimize exposure and downtime and costs, et cetera? Is there also a goal from the perspective of the government to actually catch people and put them in jail, or does that never happen? All these things are emanating from far corners of the world, the bad guys, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, wherever. You don't ever catch these people. You just hold them off as long as you can.
Occasionally, the government gets a win. The cyber attackers identified, and they're in a country where there's extradition. There is a group called Scattered Spider who helps cybercrime groups. And the reason they do is because they're brilliant at what's called social engineering. If you get on a phone call with one of them, they can talk you into anything. They'll talk companies into giving them access, resetting username, passcode, and two-factor authentication for a systems administrator. That's what happened to MGM. If you remember, they were attacked in Vegas. It shut down half of Vegas for a number of weeks. Some of them were in the UK and the US. Bad news for them, because if you identify them, they get arrested. And it turned out they were like 17-year-old kids. But most of these cyber criminals are working with intelligence agencies, and they're sitting in countries that have no extradition. And when we go to a China or Russia and say, these bad guys did this, they look at us and say, no, don't be hysterical. You're making this kind of stuff up. And they don't help.
And it's not really the point of this conversation, but I'm going to ask the question, call this a bit of a digression. Are we in any way as a country or the Western space, are we offensive at all? Is that important to keep defensive in some regard? Or, do we try to
I hear
create, cyber problems for China, Russia, and Iranian companies, or they can live scot-free. They don't have any cyber criminals. All the bad guys are over there.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of thinking about this. It's a really great question. We don't do the same things that other countries do. For example, China and Russia will allow their cyber criminals to attack the West as long as they just attack the West. You can't attack at home. In fact, when you look at a lot of the code that comes from Russian cyber attackers, at the very beginning, it'll say, look for a Cyrillic keyboard. And if you see one, don't attack, right? Because they know that if they attack close to home, then we could get in trouble. We don't attack. We don't have our criminals attacking their people. Our spies attack them and their spies attack us. That's the great game. We expect that to happen. At the end of the day, I think if we want to make ourselves safe from critical infrastructure cyber attacks, which is another category of what keeps me up at night in the world of cyber crime and espionage, then we have to have the ability to strike back just as hard as they strike us. In other words, our cyber command, our NSA, our different espionage agencies have to be able to hit a foreign country who hits us in our critical infrastructure, lights, power, water.
Are our spies today trying to do that? Don't we have spies? I mean, I would think with the current administration, they're very aggressive. They don't really care about international norms as much as some of the past folks, and in many cases to the advantage of the country. I mean, I would think that we're well positioned to be smart about this today.
I'd like to see a demonstration. Now, the last time we really saw this happen was an attack that was years ago called Stuxnet. No one will admit it, but it was a joint effort between the U.S. and Israel. At least that's what most experts believe, to spin the centrifuges in Iran just a little bit faster than they're supposed to, a tiny, tiny fraction of a degree, so much that the sensors didn't even see it. And that caused these very meticulous machines to all break. And it put that nuclear program back, like a decade. I would have loved to see us do it again. And instead, we bombed the heck out of them. That was a great chance to show how strong we are with an offensive cyber attack.
With the advent of AI and quantum computing, is there any difference in the balance of risk in your mind? Do you think that the ultimate balance is going to tip more towards your clients, private companies in the West, et cetera, or Western governments, or is it going to tip more towards the bad guys?
Depends on who reaches quantum supremacy first. So quantum creates a severe problem for cybersecurity. First of all, a quantum computer is going to be able to break our current levels of encryption, the encryption we rely on to protect everything. So if we don't have a new quantum encryption online, as soon as a quantum computer is reduced to scale and so they can move at a speed that can break encryption, right now, you're not going to be able to protect your systems with our typical RSA type encryption. The other problem, of course, is there have been for years harvest now, decrypt later attacks. And what that is espionage groups will steal information from companies that they're able to burrow into. The cyber criminals are able to steal data and then encrypt with ransomware. They keep that data and they'll put it on the dark web. They'll hand it to their friends at the intelligence agencies. They can't see it because it's encrypted. They don't know what's in the data. But when a quantum computer comes online, at scale, it will be able to just crush that encryption. All that data that they've grabbed from all these companies and people for all these years will then be open and into the clear. And that could be very dangerous.
Is it a binary? Is quantum computing either you reach the level or you don't, or is it a gradual ramp up? And what's your assessment of how far away from a time standpoint are we, are they, et cetera?
Yeah, experts all disagree on how fast it's going to take to reach that quantum supremacy. Or people like say, I don't like supremacy. I don't like that word. But basically, that's what it is, because you will be able to be the top dog in all espionage if you can reach this thing faster. Right now, Russia and China are working together. And basically, the whole West is working together with IBM, Google, and some other companies leading the charge to see who gets there first. I think it's going to take another few years, but AI and the incredible speed that AI is progressing has certainly helped with this, because it can do a lot of the math very quickly. And just wait until we have quantum computers that now run AI. That's going to be real interesting as well.
And once the quantum computing is available, is there a distribution hub so that quantum computing is now available, let's just say, and all of the various, hundreds and thousands of American companies and Western companies, they all plug into that hub and they get it? Or is it going to be a slow dissemination of technology that each company has to have their own quantum computer?
It's going to be absolute chaos until encryption standards wholesale are changed. Now, just because China has a quantum computer, Russia has a quantum computer, doesn't mean like they're going to be quantum computers all over the place. These are expensive to build. They require a lot of science. But once they're reduced to scale, we're going to have to worry about espionage first. And I hope that by the time the cyber criminals get their hands on one, we can get ahead of the encryption, because that will be the stage. And right now, companies are working hard on building a new encryption scheme that will defy the ability of quantum computers to break our current encryption.
But don't they need quantum computing in order to build that new?
Yeah, well, everything is in theory right now. The computers and the encryption, but they're working both problems.
And who are the leaders? I mean, is it Microsoft and Stanford University, or is it some obscure name? I mean, where is the leadership coming from?
Right. So the European Union is working on it with the United States. The UK is involved as well. Google and IBM have invested tons of money. Here in the West, there were challenges where the top minds were asked to, actually all over the world, were asked to start solving problems in quantum encryption and developing quantum computer technologies. I think the three winners were immediately hired by IBM, so that's good. In my book, I do note that Russia and China have created the ability to encrypt with quantum encryption communications between a point in Russia and a point in China that we can't crack, we can't touch. So, they're moving the needle too. It's certainly a problem. And, it has a problem for how we protect everything that's digital, which includes all our money. I do know people who are worried enough about this that they just have a bunch of gold in their basement and went back to cash, just thinking that, they want something that they can rely on when, currency could be meaningless until we get around this problem if it's all digital.
What are the practical implications for the folks listening to this podcast who are well-heeled for the most part, families in the United States that are well-educated and consider themselves informed, or they want to be listening to us, and that are proactive and are willing to follow your advice, Eric? Is there a way to protect themselves right now against the current set of threats, and what should they be doing?
Right. So I would worry more about the current set of threats than this future of quantum problems that, may or may not come to pass in the next few years, because there isn't much you can do. And it's not worth worrying over something that right now is in theory. But there is plenty to worry about that people can take concrete steps to protect themselves. And for your listeners, that's financial and investment fraud. There's a great deal of that. For organizations, we talked about the threat of ransomware or data theft and extortion. But for individuals, those same problems exist. And there are social engineering, impersonation, and confidence scheme attacks that are targeting high net worth individuals in particular in order to steal their money, to get them to invest in fraudulent scams and to completely fool them. And sometimes it uses AI in order to get you to do something you shouldn't.
In our pre-conversation, you and I talked about the idea of dual authentication, right?
Yes, right. Oh, certainly.
Explain what that is, so we all know exactly what it's doing for us.
I'll give you like a quick 5 things that everyone that can do to help protect yourself from like 90% of the cyber attacks. The first thing is use multi-factor authentication everywhere. I say this all the time, and it's one of the primary concepts in cyber security. But the fact of the matter is, most people don't use it. This is at the most basic level, something more than a password. If we just rely on a password, we're dead in the water. It's over. Passwords are an Achilles heel for cybersecurity. AI is getting good enough that it's starting to crunch passwords. You can guess passwords if you know enough about the person through their social media. Don't ever rely on a password. Always rely on something in addition to that password.
Let's say that the companies that are trying to protect their clients and therefore their businesses, simply, and I'm obviously the extreme layperson here, but we all know we've all been locked out if we try to log in too many times and we can't get in. So, and we have to call someone up and reset our password. If the concern is that there's going to be a computer that is going to learn enough about me to go on and try all the passwords that I might guess, but they're going to be locked out after 5 failed attempts. And they're not going to get it in the first 5. They're not going to get mine in the first 5. I can guarantee you that. So
Right.
why isn't that sufficient in and of itself to protect myself?
Because you might lose your password. Someone might get your email account and it's in there because you emailed it. Or most people actually use the same password everywhere. They come up with this great password and they use it everywhere. You used it at the ice cream shop for your rewards program or your coffee place,
Right.
and they got breached. And now your password's out there, and someone sees your email address and just tries it in your bank account, right? So the best thing is don't rely on just the password. Have two-factor authentication. Every single organization should turn this on. If you're a financial organization not using it, then you might be in legal jeopardy.
Oh, we have it here at Wilmington Trust. Now, let me ask you this. I'll get to two-factor authentication in a moment, but when I go on and I create an account any place, including at any financial institution, my computer says, do you want me to recommend a password? And if I say yes, it gives me some long chain of random characters. And I've taken to always saying yes now for anything. And certainly all of my financial institutions, the reason I say you can't get it in the first 5 is because I don't even know what it is. Some password that Apple suggested, right? Is there any reason for folks not to do that? And B, if you do that, does it give me a first order protection because I'm not using that password anywhere else? Like for my ice cream rewards program.
And that sits encrypted, and the only way to decrypt that password each time it wants to add the password is using what's called a passkey. And so if you're, for example, on your Mac, it'll say it has to enter the password, and you use your one master password for your computer.
Right.
And then it accesses that password. So to get that, they would have to have access to your computer and your passkey and the ability to have that input. So that's very strong. That's a passkey system, and that is very much like two-factor authentication. Use an authenticator app. A great way to do multi-factor is to have an extra app on your phone. Once again, it's encrypted. It cycles a number every 20 seconds. You type that number in and you're good to go. I don't see why we still use passwords. Why not just use that? Our phones are always on us. So, you can always look in, and that's far more secure than just typing in this password you memorized alone.
Okay, so let's go to multi-factor authentication now. Let's assume that we haven't done an Apple suggested password, which is a great start, or maybe we've done that, but we still want another layer of protection. I do multi-factor authentication in most places, although I'm going to tell you a story about that in a moment. But for me, what that means is that I go on and it says, okay, you put in the right password. That's not good enough. I'm going to send a text to your phone, and either you're going to copy that code into the site you're trying to get into, or you're going to use an authenticator app or whatever it may be. Let's assume I never lose my phone or I don't have a criminal with a gun to my head. That gives me a pretty good level of protection right there as well, right?
Absolutely. And that's what I'm talking about. That's something other than your password, that extra step. Because if someone is able to steal or guess your password, they can't get in if they don't have that extra access to that code that comes to your phone, unless they cloned your phone, right? But then that's someone who's really dedicated to getting you. An authenticator app is even better because they would have to have access to the phone and the authenticator app and be able to get into it. Usually now you get into the authenticator app with biometrics. The phone looks at you,
Right.
right? And it unlocks.
Sure.
So those are great ways to protect yourself.
After we had our pre-call, I said, oh my God, I'm going to be smart. I'm going to protect myself even better than I am already. I called up the person who was my relationship manager and I said, hey, can you help me figure out how to turn on multi-factor authentication? So he said, no, but I'll find out. And they got back to me and they told me, well, if you want multi-factor, you need to download an app called Authenticator. I said, terrific. So now I got the app and I went to log in and I said, well, we're going to charge you, monthly $6 to use this app, or you can sign up for the year for $50 or for life for $100. So it's not a big expense.
Well, no, but that's ridiculous because most authenticators are free. Yeah, that's just a bad implementation of multi-factor authentication. You want to encourage it, not charge someone for it.
Right. So I was shocked that this huge company.
Right. They don't have a investment in cybersecurity that you would want to see.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to call them back and I'm going to make them listen to this conversation.
Yeah, when we do advisory for companies in cyber, we start by looking at, do you have this turned on everywhere? Because the number one way to get into a company is to steal an account for someone who has access to the things that you want to steal. That's why systems administrators, the people in IT who can create accounts and elevate privileges and give people access to different servers, those are the ones that are the number one point of attack. I mean, if you don't have two-factor authentication turned on, you're dead in the water there.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you think is particularly interesting? And when you think about answering that question, one of the things that I promised that we would touch on, if you felt that cybersecurity is going to be even a bigger deal going forward, how does somebody take advantage of the growth, of the importance of cybersecurity, of the ecosystem? Where should we invest in order to take advantage of, the growth of this need?
There are plenty of companies that are looking to be incredibly innovative. Right now, getting ahead of the quantum threat is somewhere you might look. Companies that are working on AI deepfake detector technology, I think, with the rise in deepfakes, with the ease and accessibility at building a video that is hyper realistic and fools people into thinking it's true, I believe that within a year, we are going to all be running some app, some layer of technology on our computers, on our phones, every way that we communicate that will say 60% deepfake, 90% possible deepfake, right? Because so that when someone is trying to fool us, we can see whether it's true or not. What if you're the CFO for a company and you reach out to someone in finance and say, we immediately need to start funding this partner that we're working with.
Right.
And you're doing it on a Zoom call.
Right.
And what's that that low-level finance person who has access to bank accounts and wires is looking at you directly, and you're on the call and say, okay, send the wire, I'll wait. There goes $1 million from your company because he just wired it to a cyber criminal who deepfaked you and logged into a Zoom call. And this happened. I tell the story in a book to one of the largest architecture firms in the world. There was this scam by the cybercrime group who deepfaked 5 different people just to fool this one guy in a Zoom call and got him to wire 15 separate wires to 5 different bank accounts.
So the moral of the story is, and it's interesting, if I'm an organization and I want to make sure that my clients are protected, if somebody wants to have a wire done and I'm going to do a verbal confirm, I should only do a verbal confirm when I make an outgoing call to a known number. That way.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. So it's those kinds of protections that we need to look for as consumers to ensure that the financial service providers are taking our interests seriously and investing in our protection.
Yeah, with my financial service provider, he and I have a code word, a phrase that I use. And I say, if you don't hear me say this phrase, don't do it. He's read my book and now he said he's going to do it with his other clients. Tony, you got to do this now with your family. I have one with my family. Because there's a cybercrime attack right now that is spreading like wildfire across the country where you get a call from your daughter and it goes like this. A very
watch right. She's kidnapped.
Yeah, this is the new one they're using. Dad, I got in a car wreck. I think I hit a pregnant woman. It's really bad. The police showed up. I'm in jail or something. I don't know what to do. Can you talk to this guy? They gave me him, and I think he's my public defender. Then the next voice comes on. It's this gruff voice. I'm the public defender. Your daughter was in a serious accident. She's at fault. I'm going to defend her. I need money to pay bail, or she's going to be in here for the next week. And you have to send it now. This is the only phone call she gets.
Well, I'd like to see them do that with regard to me. My wife would say, you can have them. We take them. Hey, can you make it a month instead of a week?
Right.
That would be really a nice vacation. Well, we'd love to have you back because this is obviously an evolving area. I asked you if there's anything else you wanted to mention, and I didn't let you answer the question.
Oh, no, that's certainly fine. I think the number one bit of advice, after the technology, get two-factor authentication. The number one bit of advice I can give anyone is to take a breath. Cyber criminals are attacking you and me. They're not attacking your computer through a computer. Most of these attacks are directly person to person. And what they're doing is trying to fool and deceive you into doing something you shouldn't do. So when you're placed in that pressure situation, when it's the call from your daughter saying, I've been in Iraq, or this brilliant investment scheme that you're going to lose out on if you don't take advantage of it, or this thing that you can buy as you're scrolling through social media that if you click off of this, it's going to be gone, right? Take a moment and take a breath and look for the scam. Assume it's there and see if you can find a way to trust rather than believing and trusting by default. Because if you can do that, if you can train yourself to not give in right away to the pressure, sometimes even hanging up the phone, right, and calling back, then you can save yourself from some of these very damaging and personally disruptive attacks.
The way that I would say that for our clients, in my own terminology, and I say this to my wife all the time, because if my phone rings, and unless it's a known person, I don't ever pick up a phone call. And I say to them, if it's something real, they'll figure out how to get to me. They'll find another way.
That's a good piece of advice. And hey, end it with this. There's weird little texts we get that just say, hey, or how are you? Or how are you doing? Or I missed you at the barbecue.
First, those are
cyber criminals who are trying to find a person that they can spend a lot of time talking to until they become your new best friend or your new romance partner, just so they can steal from you.
I've had a number of situations where my wife said to me, oh, can you pick this up on the way home? And I forgot. And I got home and she said to me, well, where's the milk? And I said, honey, I didn't think that was you. I assumed that I was being... so it could be, you have to be creative with this, Eric, but you can use this to your advantage in a lot of personal situations.
That's a good one. Yeah, my rule with my wife is if it's more than two things, we need to write it down.
Right. Okay.
I will forget one of the three. Right.
All right. Well, listen, this has been a really fun conversation. Thank you for joining us. And for our audience, please go to wilmingtontrust.com for a full roundup of our past episodes and all of our thought leadership in the investment and planning arena. Thank you so much for listening.
This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended as an offer or solicitation for the sale of any financial product or service or recommendation or determination that any investment strategy is suitable for a specific investor. Investors should seek financial advice regarding the suitability of any investment strategy based on the investor's objectives, financial situation, and particular needs. The information on Wilmington Trust's capital considerations with Tony Roth has been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but its accuracy and completeness are not guaranteed. The opinions, estimates, and projections constitute the judgment of Wilmington Trust as of the date of this podcast and are subject to change without notice. The opinions of any guest on the Capital Considerations podcast who are not employed by Wilmington Trust or M&T Bank are their own and do not necessarily represent those of M&T Bank Corporate or any of its affiliates. Wilmington Trust is not authorized to and does not provide legal or tax advice. Our advice and recommendations provided to you is illustrative only and subject to the opinions and advice of your own attorney, tax advisor, or other professional advisor. Diversification does not ensure a profit or guarantee against a loss. There is no assurance that any investment strategy will be successful. Past performance cannot guarantee future results. Investing involves a risk, and you may incur a profit or a loss. Any reference to company names mentioned in the podcast should not be construed as investment advice or investment recommendations of those companies. Third-party trademarks and brands are the property of their respective owners. Third parties referenced herein are independent companies and are not affiliated with M&T Bank or Wilmington Trust. Listing them does not suggest a recommendation or endorsement by Wilmington Trust. Private market investments are only available to investors that meet the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission's definition of qualified purchaser and accredited investor. Facts and views presented in this report have not been reviewed by and may not reflect information known to professionals in other business areas of Wilmington Trust or M&T Bank, and may provide or seek to provide financial services to entities referred to in this report. M&T Bank and Wilmington Trust have established information barriers between their various business groups. As a result, M&T Bank and Wilmington Trust do not disclose certain client relationships or compensation received from such entities in their reports. Investment products are not insured by the FDIC or any other governmental agency, are not deposits of or other obligations of or guaranteed by Wilmington Trust, M&T Bank, or any other bank or entity, and are subject to risks including a possible loss of the principal amount invested. Wilmington Trust is a registered service mark used in connection with various fiduciary and non-fiduciary services offered by certain subsidiaries of M&T Bank Corporation, including, but not limited to, Manufacturers and Traders Trust Company, M&T Bank, Wilmington Trust Company, WTC, operating in Delaware only, Wilmington Trust N.A., WTNA, Wilmington Trust Investment Advisors, Inc., WTIA, Wilmington Funds Management Corporation, WFMC, Wilmington Trust Asset Management, LLC, WTAM, and Wilmington Trust Investment Management, LLC, WTIM. Such services include trustee, custodial, agency, investment management, and other services. International corporate and institutional services are offered through M&T Bank Corporation's international subsidiaries. Loans, credit cards, retail and business deposits, and other business and personal banking services and products are offered by M&T Bank, member FDIC. Copyright 2025, M&T Bank and its affiliates and subsidiaries. All rights reserved.